Hello everybody and welcome back to Fourth and Feast, where each week we go over the latest in sports and media content while cooking up some delicious meals for you. Today on the menu is going to be a deep fried shrimp with a homemade volcano sauce on top of a better rice, while going over our week 11 matchups. The first matchup this week is going to be between the Washington Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles, which is going to be the deciding game on who is going to be the leader in the NFC East. Now, for the Birds, their offense is very dominant last week, and they really showed that, the Cowboys aren't really a relevant team anymore. Open up a can of whoop ass on some division rivals. And really, if they could build upon that momentum and take it into this game, I think it'll be a huge help. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a slow burn, which I'm not excited for. I think it's going to be a little bit more of Saquon and Jalen Hurts doing what they do on the outside with running. I don't think that they should run it up the middle against this Washington Commanders defense, whose linebackers are really good, but they are very slow with Bobby Wagner. I am looking for A.J. Brown to have quite a big game, especially against this really light DB room. None of these guys are really big players. I think that they're all extremely small. We've seen that last week in Pittsburgh, where the Commanders' defense seemed like they just weren't quite as physical. Over 30 points, I think, as long as Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles and Kellen Moore just keep on doing what they've been doing, they have the opportunity to take these deep shots to their playmakers, and this is the healthiest that the Philadelphia Eagles have been on the offensive side of the ball. And on the defensive side of the ball for the Philadelphia Eagles, Cooper DeJean is the best player in the NFL. Cooper DeJean really played his ass off last week, and just these last couple of weeks, he's been playing really well. I was really worried about the fact that he wasn't really getting a lot of work at the beginning of the season, along with a lot of these other Philadelphia Eagles players on defense. It seemed like a lot of these young guys weren't taking the leaps and bounds that we were expecting. Nolan Smith didn't look great to start the year. Quinyon Mitchell, none of them really looked amazing to begin the season, but it looks like now that we're past the bye, it seems like they are starting to understand the NFL offenses a little bit more and how the NFL is different from the college level, and it seems like a lot of them have really stepped up. Now, with them stepping up, I think it was really huge that they had kept around a lot of those older guys in the defense, and I think it's the perfect mixture of really old veterans, these guys that have been in the league for 8+, maybe even 10+ years, alongside with these 1 to 2 year. Going over to the other team, the Commanders, their offense. My friend Josh Garcia, he's got his own podcast, the So-Called Sports Analyst. Him and Fonzo, shout out to them. You should definitely go watch them. They brought this point up in their podcast, and I've been hearing it for a while now. I didn't know it was a real thing. I did Google it and I double checked. Whenever Brian Robinson Jr. is over 12 carries or 12 touches, the Washington Commanders win every single game, and this dates back to last year whenever he came out to 50 Cent whenever he got shot. Now, fun facts aside, I think Brian Robinson Jr. is the piece that was missing in this offense. Austin Eckler is a solid RB2, but I think Brian Robinson gives them that power and downhill type of guy, and they don't really have a lot of physical players on that offensive side of the ball, and I think he brings that element to the game. For this game, I think Jaden Daniels is going to have to get his legs involved quite a bit, just because of the interior defense being much better than the offensive line that the Commanders have. Outside of Terry McLaurin last week, all the other players combined touches was for 56 receiving yards, I believe. If they're able to shut down Scary Terry, Jaden Daniels is going to have to find another way to facilitate the ball. And I don't know if their typical style of offense will work against the Philadelphia's defense, doing a lot of dump-offs and quick stuff, just because of Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. And to go over to the Commies defense, all they really need to work on is to prevent the big play. It seems like the defense is really taking a huge step up, with a lot of their guys starting to come back, but they are still missing some key pieces. I think the signing of Marshawn Lattimore was huge for them and kind of the perfect piece. Like I said earlier, whenever I was talking about the Eagles, they're susceptible to the big plays just because of how small that their corners are. And I think Marshawn Lattimore is the exact opposite of what they have on the outsides, with a more of a physical approach. And like I said earlier, these linebackers are not very fast, and they are ranked 28th in the league. Bobby Wagner is a very good downhill smart linebacker, but he's not good on the outside. So as long as they're able to contain the outside, keep Hurts in the pocket, Bobby Wagner just needs to play downhill. They need to contain Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley to try and run it down the middle. And the safeties need to play a little bit deeper. Same thing with these corners. So then hopefully they won't be susceptible to those really big plays, and just hope that Dallas Goedert doesn't have an insane game against that. Now the over-under for this one is going to be 45.5. I have the easy over. I could see each one of these teams scoring 30 plus points, and I can see this being a very high scoring game. The next matchup is going to be between the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is going to be another division rivalry. Both teams at the top of their division and really competing for that spot. Now, I wanted to start it off by saying both of these teams are coming off a huge wins, where both of them only won their game by 1 point last week, with the Ravens and Baltimore really showing out and showing why MVP goes to Lamar Jackson, with the Pittsburgh Steelers really pulling a huge upset, and I think some great coaching over there by Mike Tomlin, beating the Commanders and handing them their third loss on the season. On the Ravens side of the ball, the offense, they just have to stick to the run. Derrick Henry work. It seems like as long as he's getting 13, 14 plus carries a game, they end up winning, and he ends up having an extremely well day. I mean, there's a reason why the guy's Offensive Player of the Year, maybe even MVP candidate. The dude is maybe going to break 2K again. And I think as long as you keep the ball in his hand, it's a positive game strip. Now, for Deontay Johnson, this seems like a revenge game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know if it's really going to matter, just because Deontay Johnson's really good at man, and the Steelers do run a lot of man, so I can see him getting the targets. It's a good matchup. But the fact that last week he had one catch doesn't really impress me. It seems like ever since they brought the guy over, he's just kind of been a jag, just a guy. You know, he hasn't really been anything to write home about. So until we see anything, I think I'm going to hold my breath on Deontay Johnson. And I think as long as the Ravens stay in the lead, that they'll be fine. I think as long as they get out in front of the Steelers, there's no way that the Steelers will be able to catch up to them, just because I don't have as much confidence in the Steelers offense. Going over to the defensive side of the Ravens, it's looking like Kyle Hamilton's not going to play this one, and their DB room is pretty small. And I think that will be susceptible to some big plays with George Pickens and Mike Williams, as we've seen last week against the Commanders. I think that these DB rooms are very similar between the Commies and the Ravens. I know that they have Wiggins out there, who some people like, but I think to this day he's a horrible pick. He just doesn't fit the scheme of the Ravens. He's not really a physical guy. It seems like on the Ravens defense, the only bright spot really has been Roquan. I know that Mbike just had 3 sacks against Joe Burrow, and I think as long as they're able to maybe rush Russell Wilson and get him to move around a little bit. I know he used to be great in those situations, but I think nowadays he's not as good. I think that they only need 2 to 3 sacks in this game. I think for the Ravens, I think that their best defense is going to be the offense. And going over to the Steelers, their offense, it didn't look great last week with Russell Wilson. I know that he did win, but he did only have right around 150 passing yards against a bad defense, and a lot of it came from big plays, throwing it deep to Pickens and Mike Williams there at the end. Now, I think that he is very good at giving his guy a chance. I think he turns a lot of these 50-50 balls into 70-30 balls, whether or not that is because of the great talent at receiver that he has with George Pickens, who I personally think is a top 10 guy. And I think that he is a top 3 wide receiver at playing that outside Z or X receiver, where it's just kind of go up and go get it. And I don't know if there's any receiver that has as good hands and body control as that guy. And I think he's a perfect matchup for Russell Wilson, who loves to throw it deep. I've said earlier in the season, he had DK Metcalf. He's had Baldwin. Even had Cortland Sutton back in Denver. All these guys who are actually pretty good at the contested catch. Hopefully Jalen Warren plays a bigger role in this one. I don't know if Najee Harris will really play a huge role. I think he'll fleece some touchdowns. I think with Warren coming back healthy, it really just helps both of the running backs rather than one or the other. Going over to the defensive side of the ball for the Steelers, I'm really excited to see what they can do to stop both of these MVP candidates in the backfield. The Steelers are a top 3 defense, and hands down, I think that they are the most complete defense in the NFL. I don't see a single weakness whenever you look at each and every single level of the ball. It seems like these younger DBs have stepped up quite a bit for them. I guess the one weakness might be middle linebacker for them. With them drafting Wilson, I think that he was a huge pickup for them. Keep Lamar Jackson with the ball in his hands, throwing it a little bit more. I think that gives them a better chance. At Pitt, the over-under on this one's 42. I'm taking the under. I'm still going to have the Ravens winning it, though. They have 2 MVPs in the backfield. This offense looks absolutely amazing. And like I said earlier, if they can take this early lead and keep it, I think that they win. And Russell Wilson and the Steelers haven't really proven me enough to show that they are leaps and bounds ahead what I think that they are at. For the last matchup of the week, it's going to be a huge one, a game of the week, the one that everyone's looking forward to. It's going to be the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs at the Buffalo Bills. I think that this one is going to have huge implications, and I am super excited to see how this one plays out. Now, for the offensive side of the Chiefs, and it looks like they are a super dominant team. We've seen last week, even whenever they don't play good, they win, and they are good. There's a reason why they are undefeated. Mahomes is Mahomes. It seems like they're great without all their key weapons. Pacheco's been out. Hollywood's been out. Rashee Rice has been out. And this offense doesn't look great. But, I mean, they find ways to win, and that's all you need to do at the end of the day. I think the reason why everyone hated the Patriots back in the day whenever I was a little bit younger was because I feel like their offense was the exact same style. It seemed like every single year, Tom Brady and the Patriots weren't that great of an offense. It was a pretty good defense. And then all of a sudden in the playoffs, Julian Edelman and Gronk would be going insane. Tom Brady would be going nuclear. Sony Michel would be scoring a shit ton of touchdowns all of a sudden. And I'm afraid that's what the Kansas City Chiefs have developing here right now with them going undefeated still. And on the opposite side of the ball, the Kansas City Chiefs defense is the best defense in the NFL. Steve Spagnuolo is amazing. I mean, there's no holes. There's no holes. I think that this is the team that has the most complete defense. The DBs play amazing. Even these safeties who I had no confidence in are starting to step it up. Cook and Justin Reed have just been really playing levels ahead of where I thought that they would have been. I think that Trent McDuffie is the number 2 DB in the NFL. And whenever you have the number 2 DB in the NFL, along with a top 3 defensive tackle, along with some really young, really good middle linebackers, along with those good edge threats, I don't see how you guys can do anything offensively against them. And of course, if the Chiefs defense have an off day, like how I feel like they did against the Broncos, their special teams will bail them out. For the other team, the Buffalo Bills, they are extremely exciting to watch. Their offense is not interesting for fantasy, and I know this because I have a couple of their players, but they're extremely solid all around. I think that the Buffalo Bills offense is just like the Chiefs defense. I feel like there are 0 holes. They have a really good O-line, and they have a really good RB1 and a solid young RB2. I think Josh Allen is playing at an MVP level. I know last week he had his off game, and I'm happy he got that out of the way. He had 2 picks, 0 passing touchdowns, looked really bad on his stat sheet. And I think before these last 2 weeks, he was a top MVP candidate. And I think that all those picks kind of take it away from him. But if he's getting those out of the way, I think it gives them a really good chance against the Chiefs. I'm super excited to see how Josh Allen will put this team on his back. I think Amari Cooper, like I said earlier, has really unlocked this offense and let Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakur kind of cook and just move around a lot more. And on the opposite side of the ball, their defense is more like the Chiefs' offense. It seems like they have a couple of key pieces who have played really well and unexpected players to kind of step it up that you weren't expecting, and then some other guys that you were expecting to do really good playing really poorly, with Ed Oliver, who I think has taken a step back and hasn't played his best ball as of recently. But the linebackers and a couple of these DBs are playing a little bit higher than I expected. But with that being said, this DB room still isn't great, and I can see them getting exposed against Mahomes. We know what the guy can do, creating in space and getting outside of the pocket. So for this game, the over-under for this one is going to be 45.5 points. I'm shooting the over. I think that this can be a super high-scoring game, and I just see the Bills' offense just playing out of their mind, and then Mahomes just keeps on answering and answering and answering. But with that being said, I do have the Buffalo Bills still winning this one. I think that the Bills are going to be the regular season winners, but playoff losers. To end this one off, I'm just going to run through the last bit of the matchups and give you a quick little key points on all of them. First one's going to be Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears' new offensive coordinator is still as he used to be the Carolina's OC, and for the Packers, they seem pretty good all around. Next game is the Minnesota Vikings at the Tennessee Titans. Sam Darnold is starting to look like he's playing a little bit scared. Will Levis, he needs more reps, and he actually might be something special. Next one is going to be the LA Rams at the New England Patriots. Kyron looks bad, and I called it. Drake May is this offense. Indianapolis Colts at the New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams just both look extremely old. Just go ahead and start AR. It's rebuilding season. Hopefully you guys get a top pick. The Las Vegas Raiders versus the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins are back, and they're back to winning. Jacksonville Jaguars at the Detroit Lions. Lions, they just keep on dominating, and T-Law is still hurt. Cleveland Brown at the New Orleans Saints. Jameis Winston will come back. He will return. This is his revenge game, but I think we're going to go on a winning streak here and give me all sorts of false hope. Atlanta Falcons at the Denver Broncos. I think this is going to be a close one, and I do have the Broncos winning it. Cincinnati Bengals at the LA Chargers, an extremely interesting game, but I do think that the Bengals are going to go on a bit of a run with how high-powered that offense is. Hopefully their defense can just play mid. And the last game of the week is going to be the Houston Texans at the Dallas Cowboys, the Texas Showdown. The Texans OC, Bobby Slowick, has been doing an extremely horrible job these last 3 to 4 weeks, running the ball a little bit too much on passing downs, but I still have them easily winning this game. Nico Collins is returning, and I think this offense is unlocked again for the Houston Texans. If you guys made it this far in the video, I just wanted to start off by saying thank you guys. And if you could leave a like, subscribe, and maybe share to some other people, and leave some comments if you guys have any opinions or have any questions for me, fantasy, football, or just sports, or even betting related. I do a little bit of that. Also, if you guys are interested, I would recommend checking out the So-Called Sports Analyst podcast. I will have it linked in the description as my friend's podcast, and I would go ahead and give it a listen. They have some really good takes, and they are just all around fun to listen to.